Hello, and welcome to my presentation about the Haitian Revolution's impact on abolition in the French Empire. The thesis here is that the Haitian Revolution served as a catalyst to abolition in the French Empire. Before we can talk about the effects of the Haitian Revolution, we first need to contextualize the French Empire state at the time. The French Empire underwent a huge upheaval of governance during the 1789 Revolution. The revolution put an end to the supreme reign of the monarchical Ancien Regime and replaced it with the bourgeois who planned and executed most of the revolution. One of the main drivers of these events was the Enlightenment movement and its values. Works such as the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen established man's equality as a centerpiece in its political and intellectual philosophy. The notion that all men are born equal is crucial to remember going forward. Lastly, France was competing against empires such as Spanish and British at the time. Haiti was crucial in this mercantile system, supplying 35% of products for French foreign trade. Now, we are ready to look at the events around the Haitian Revolution. By 1791, talks about abolition were silenced, and the French National Assembly went as far as to prosecute those who tried to incite it. The slave trade and its exports produced too much money. Combined with the conflict of interest of assembly members owning plantations, the implementations of equality did not make it across the Atlantic. However, the idea did. Slaves saw the French Revolution as a symbolic slave rebellion in its own way. At the same time, there was strong class and racial tensions on the colony. The confusion of the times can be seen by how the Assembly granted rights to free blacks on the colony while at the same time executing prominent free blacks for inciting abolition. This all culminated in a slave rebellion in August of 1791. Under the leadership of a few generals, the fighting slaves managed to ally with Spain and control large parts of the colony. France was at war with the British and Spanish empires at the time, and it was looking more and more like one of their foes might take over Haiti. After failed tries in combating the slaves and worried about losing Haiti, French commissioners of Haitian provinces emancipated the slaves in an attempt to get them to switch sides and fight for France. Though some slaves did switch sides, generals such as Toussaint Louverture on the left continued to fight against the French. In Paris, the National Convention agreed that their economy cannot lose the Haitian colony. Although there were many disagreements on how the Constitution should or shouldn't apply to all men, in 1794, the French National Convention passed a decree to abolish slavery in all French colonies, making France the first European empire to codify abolition. It's crucial to note that there was much disagreement about this at the time, in Paris and on the colony. Furthermore, conditions for many ex-slaves did not change very much, and some got worse as Louverture implemented a military regime to continue plantation exports. One of the themes of this course is how empires create channels to share ideas and technology. The flow of ideas about equality from France to Haiti played a seminal part in inciting a slave uprising. Even before that, abolition in France was discussed largely because of free blacks coming from Haiti to speak about their demands. Enlightenment values were new at the time, and the idea of equality before the law was anything but granted when just 5 years earlier the king ruled over everyone by virtue from God. This exchange of information between metropole and colony caused events on one side of the Atlantic to reciprocate on the other. Inter-empire competition is another overarching course theme that can be applied to this revolution and subsequent abolition. The main reason for abolishing slavery was to preserve the Haitian plantation colony. Competing against the Spanish and British empires, France could not afford to lose Haiti as a huge economic engine. The field of imperial adversaries created a climate where profits in money and land were paramount, leaving no room to cut corners. Here we see how fear of and competition from other empires directly induced action by the French sovereign. Overall, the 1794 decree was fought against by ensuing governments in Paris, and even repealed by Napoleon Bonaparte himself. It was not until 1848 that France passed a law for abolition that was truly here to stay. Even so, the idea of equality was stifled by the different citizenship tiers and discrimination against women and different religions. However, it was the actions on the little island of Hispaniola that pushed a giant French empire into codifying a freedom from slavery for the first time in 1794. Thank you.